What's going on, peeps? It is a Worlds Collide Wednesday, this time on the Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide channel. Yeah, we were having some trouble earlier um, with getting our stuff up and running on Speed Gaming, so we're bringing it to you live and direct here. I am joined by my buddy Arusta in the commentary booth. What's going on?
All right.
Not a whole lot. I am looking forward to getting this race going. Should be some interesting stuff here. This is the update for version 1.3, version 1.3 showcase. And so we'll go through some of the changes as we go through. You can actually see on Bosch's side, showing off a few things right now. The one interesting objective there was the auto overcast, which, if you remember how Goddess works in vanilla, basically puts on a when you die, you come back as a zombie. Well, here it's an objective that they're going to accidentally meet, and then later in the seed, they'll just have to avoid letting people die or revivify and heal them.
Yeah, it presents an interesting conundrum where, you know, after you do 10 checks, you get the auto, what is it called? Overcast. That's what it's called. The auto overcast status. So your Phoenix Downs will become basically useless after that point, because you'll need to use Revivify to unzombify your characters, right? So it'll be interesting with that game mechanic and sort of how it goes and whatnot. So this flag set is going to be featuring some of the new things that is in version 1.3 to sort of, you know, highlight them. The first of which being you can now scale by bosses and dragons defeated. So, unlocking Final Kefka will require you to defeat 15 bosses. Remember, there are 5 bosses in Kefka's tower, so you can really only have to defeat 10 out in the world and then get into KT for your last 5. Also, to unlock the Kefka Tower skip, I threw in an objective of 10 Espers, just because we do have a new flag that allows you to set a maximum amount of Espers that can be at the auction house. So in this case, there can only be at most 1 Esper in the auction house. There's a lot of other changes in here. So what is, you know, one of the most interesting things you've pointed out, Arista, with the different flags we're looking at tonight?
So one of them is chest. When you open just any chest, there's a 10% chance it will be a monster in a box, which is not just the normal, you know, pugs or katana soul or whoever. It can be any sort of monster, any sort of random battle, and 1% will be bosses. So if you're opening a bunch of chests, odds are you're going to find some random encounters. You might even find a boss. And we are off. It's like Terra, Celis, and Strago. And then I believe Terra had X Magic, and I saw someone with Blitz, I believe.
Yeah, so in this flag set, we do give our runners 10 pieces of junk gear. So you see a bunch of different junk relics, and our characters will start with no equipment. So they can have some junk equipment to start, but we're going to start looting. And one of my favorite things to do in this particular seed is be careful when you check chests. There might be some enemies that you might have to fight in them. So one of the cool things about this, though, is that the drops and steals from enemies are randomized now. That's a new flag. You could randomize what the drops that different enemies give and the different steals that enemies can have. So that's really nice.
Yeah, and that could be, I believe, pretty much anything at this point. So, you know, typically if you kill Goddess, you would get a nice Excalibur, cool stat stick, but now maybe that Excalibur is on some random leafers. Maybe there's an Illumina on random leafers, or maybe you just get a bunch of, you know, garbage items you don't really care about.
Yeah, and the garbage items can be flipped at the Coliseum in order to get some intriguing things. The Coliseum rewards have been shuffled and 50% random, as opposed to just completely random. So there's a lot less likely of a chance of something crazy showing up as your Coliseum reward, and you will actually be able to get a pair of sprint shoes for winning a Coliseum match. And in this particular flag set, we can go zoomy with the B button if you have the sprint shoes equipped. So lots of cool and interesting flags that we don't normally see that our runners are going to be playing with here. So, as I mentioned earlier, the scaling is the number of bosses you've defeated and the number of dragons you've defeated times 3. and the maximum level is 45. So when you get to that 15 bosses, you will hit the maximum level if you haven't taken any dragons on. So we'll see how that goes here. It's no monster in a boxes, and a nice sync going into South Figaro here, Arista.
Yeah, they've basically gone hand in hand the entire way. One question, since these are new flags, I'm not entirely certain of it. The monsters in a box, are those only treasure chests and not, for example, pots or barrels, or can it be basically anything with loot in it?
No, it could be anything with loot in it.
Interesting.
Yep. Yeah, so it could be this random pot here can be a monster in a box. So far, we haven't seen any of them be bitten. So 10% of the chance there will be a fight, 1% of the chance there will be a boss. So hopefully our runners don't get that 1% chance, because that would be pretty yucky. I did give Celeste Steel in order to try to encourage them to use the Always Steel. Here you see Bosch Nasty picking up some Revivifies. He's going to want a lot more of those later on in the seed, because we do have that auto overcast objective after 10 checks. So you won't be able to bring back your party members with Phoenix Downs. You'll have to use Revivifies. So you can't use life spells, you can't use remedies or the remedy spell. So that's going to be a very important item in this seed here.
Yeah, absolutely. And one little note there as well is when you bring them back with a Revivify, they come back at 1/8 HP. So at that point, they are very weak and might get killed off by the next AoE/group-wide attack. So you might need to even plan ahead and say, hey, I need to use 2 characters, one to toss the Revivify, my second turn to immediately heal that character so they don't just die back over.
Yeah, and I didn't test this when I was doing this flag set, so perhaps a ribbon or an amulet, those 2 relics that prevent the zombie status, maybe those will come in really handy here for our runners, because then this way they actually won't die and get zombied. I don't know how that actually all works, so that'll be really interesting.
Hey, finally hitting one.
Shoot. The monster
Unfortunately,
in a box. So yeah, it's
fairly
one of
weak
those,
enemies, but
it's one of those things where before you check chests, you should make sure that you have yourself equipped. We do have Blitz, and we do have Steel, so we'll see what Overswarm gets off of these characters here, because again, the Steels are randomized, so normally those enemies don't give you running shoes, but in this case, we got some shoes, baby.
yeah, and I believe both members did buy... Ooh, there's a Cesar with Sword Tech. Very nice. Both runners did buy some Warp Stones, so if you get into a battle with a monster in a box you can't fight, you at least have that option to bail yourself out.
Yeah, right, just wiping the first enemy by accident.
Alright, let me edit the flags command.
I keep forgetting though, the sprint shoes.
Yeah, and so a couple other things while they're just doing some looting here, we can talk about. There is the remove top magic spells, which is another new 1.3 exclusive, is that, you know, there's always been sort of a remove Ultima spell just to remove Ultima since it's such an overpowered spell, but now you can remove basically any spells you want. So in this one, we're removing all the level 3 spells, so Fire 3, Ice 3, Bolt 3, Life 2, which, you know, doesn't necessarily matter with the auto Overswarm, Quick, Merton, Pearl, Flare, X-Zone, Stop, and Ultima. So in terms of, like, you know, the magic you would normally use, you got the level 2 spells, you still got Doom, you still got Mute, you still got Berserk for Magimaster. Beyond that, you're going to be doing a lot of primarily relying on commands.
The team itself is kind of crummy though.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting way that our runners have to shape their parties, knowing that help is not going to be coming in the form of spells on Espers, right? However, there is a nice quality of life feature. So there is a Esper Mastery icon. So basically, we'll put a star next to the Esper on the skills menu if you have learned all of the spells on that particular Esper. Some other nice quality of life improvements. We have some NPC tips turned on. So NPCs will give you tips instead of just their vanilla dialogue. So one of the things you'll see if it comes to that is if somebody goes to fight the Opera House Dragon, the guy tells you, hey, pull the 3rd lever from the left instead of whatever he says in vanilla, which is unhelpful at all. We also have the alternate healing color text. So now heals will turn up blue instead of green. So that will help with both your friendly and foe for healing. So that'll be pretty nice.
Yeah, so Overswarm buying one more set of earrings, so 5. It's like 6 sets of earrings, which is pretty much about all you'd need. So the relics for Overswarm are in good shape, at least. Meanwhile, yes. I believe we've still only seen one monster in a box, so I feel like we're due.
Yeah, it is 10%, so they might be clumped in chests that we are never going to go after and never going to touch. One of the objectives to get sprint shoes is here in the Sealed Gate. If you defeat the Sealed Gate Cave Ninja, you will get a pair of sprint shoes, so we'll see if both of our runners want to go and do that, because it'll allow them to move around the map much, much faster.
Yeah, and to answer a question in chat in terms of the types of tips, I mean, Swan's already gave you the example of, for example, which lever to pull. I believe there's also some tips about like specific enemies or specific bosses, things like that. Though for those, I would be kind of surprised if you would see those get checked, because typically you would only check, especially with good, experienced runners like these two, you're not going to talk to just random NPCs. You're going to only talk to the ones who are right in your way.
Yeah, and the NPC dialogue has been sort of catered to the tips go with the area in which that NPC resides, right? So, for instance, there's like some NPCs in Fanatic's Tower, and they might tell you that you can only use magic there or whatever. Little Coliseum trip. Not seeing a whole heck of a lot. There is a red jacket for another piece of armor, so looks like Overswarm is just going to do this to get the the sprint shoes, and oh no, we going sleeping. I wonder if the NPC tips in Zozo are just complete nonsense. That might be something to look at, because that would be interesting and kind of funny and on brand. So you see Bosch Nasty got 4 Blizzard Orbs from that fight. So again, that's the randomness of the drops there. Not something that enemy usually gives you, and that's a pretty decent relic. Will offer you some ice absorption and fire resistance, as well as +5 magic power.
Absolutely, and just to answer a question in chat, the monster in a boxes, we believe they can be in barrels and buckets and basically anything that has loot, not just chests.
Well, Overswarm bet something he shouldn't have and got sneezed away from Chupon. F's in the chat. Yeah, so any lootable surface. I don't know if that corresponds to the hidden items in the Sealed Gate Cave. That I didn't try when I did some practice runs of this.
I would guess the answer there is no, simply because those items typically are not randomized.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
They aren't replaced, right? So.
Yeah.
A little save action here. So it looks like Bosch Nasty might be pulling on this lever for some sprint shoes. And Overswarm, meanwhile, taking Setzer, and you see how much faster you run with the sprint shoes on. Bonking into everything. It is unfortunately a cat hood dead check there for Overswarm, but best helmet in the game. I guess it's something, huh?
Yeah, it is. And I mean, since the scaling is based solely on bosses and dragons, at least it doesn't feel as bad because you didn't kick up your scaling here.
Enhancers, ice shields, and elemental rods in this shop. This is a nice one to come to. There you go.
Yep,
another set of sprint shoes. Yeah, so there are 3 different objectives with sprint shoes. One of them is to win an auction or a Coliseum match. One of them is to defeat the Sealed Gate Ninja. And the other one is to either kill or save Sid. Now, there is a bug fix that we fix the timer glitch in terms of killing Sid. You used to be able to trigger the Sid event, then go away for 2 minutes and come back and he's dead. So you can't do that any longer in the new version of the game. So you actually have to feed the old man some slow fish, or you have to wait 2 minutes for the timer to run out. Little Ultros in the sky. and a Go-Go at the end of the cave. So we'll see if Bosch Nasty rather decides to put Go-Go into the party. This is a tough decision. What do you do here, Arista?
I think I leave Go-Go out because all those commands are actually pretty good, especially the steal with it being randomized. Like that would be the only one I would think about dumping.
Yeah. Because usually when I have Go-Go and a Blitz character, I'm thinking, oh goody, 2 bum rushes, but that might not necessarily be the case in this particular seed. So 1 Esper there for Overswarm, and more importantly, that's 1 boss down for him. So he is 1 towards his 15 goal. Go-Go stats are not very good. Yeah, that's the one problem with Go-Go, is their stats tend to be low, and you can't even equip Espers on them in order to buff up those stats there. So let's talk about our 3 starting characters a little bit. Strago, he got a buff to the Ebbets Rock check, whereby if you go into Ebbets Rock, it's normally an RNG dungeon. We have lessened the randomness of Ebbets Rock by, after you get 22 pieces of coral, you get teleported to the boss room 50% of the time, you get teleported to the entrance 25% of the time, and you get teleported to the save room 25% of the time. So it's a lot more palpable because you're not going to be running around random rooms all the time when you have your coral requirements. We also have Terra because her mobilist check, the character that will join your party, as there's an offering there. I don't know if we have a weapon for it yet, but might as well pick it up. And oh, monster in a clock instead of monster in a box. So yeah, so that's why we have Terra in the party. The mobilist check will allow you to your party to join at party average instead of level 3. And then for Celeste, if we go to the Opera House Disruption, we'll hear that sweet grand finale music instead of the normal boss theme. And Overswarm has found Katana Soul over here.
Yeah, and actually one interesting thing is that this was in where there normally is monster in the boxes, which was a question I was just about to wonder about is, are the original monster in the boxes still monster in the boxes? And it appears the answer is yes.
Yes, the original monster in the boxes are still shuffled amongst themselves. Overswarm getting that nice kill on Katana Soul. Remember, the scaling is the number of bosses plus dragons times 3. Overswarm has 1 boss down, so all of his enemies are level 3. So that Katana Soul was relatively easy there. And he also stole a dragon horn from Katana Soul as well. So we'll see if there are some boots somewhere in the seeds. That's a nice pickup for him also.
Yeah, and then also learned a couple spells there. I saw Doom and I believe Ice too as well. So
yeah, those are going to be the best of your spells with the remove top spells flag on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and Doom is still, of course, as important as it always is for Final Kefka, because a few of the parts are vulnerable to Doom. And I don't believe there was an objective to learn the Cleave spell on the Sword Tech.
No, there is.
You're not getting... Oh, okay.
If you complete... Yeah, so I left in the Magitek and Sword Tech objectives.
Okay, so you at least have an option there, because X Zone doesn't exist, so...
correct.
Doom very well might be your most likely way to get instant death.
Yeah, Doom's not bad. You don't normally need to have X Zone, right? Doom will just work just as fine. Crusader is the reward here at Daryl's Tomb, and it's number 24 stepping up to the plate. Again, this is a level 3 a level 3 version of it. So we'll see what the heck happens here. Oh no, Mog, what are you doing? Or is that Strago? I'm sorry. Strago, you're killing me.
Though did get the opportunity to show off if you saw that blue number on Strago casting ice on ice with the ice shield, the blue healing number. So Strago just wants to show off the new flags.
There you
Makes
go.
sense.
Thanks, Strago. Leave the old man alone. He's just trying to help. All right, so Bosch Nasty is going to go to the Opera House Disruption and going to show us one of the new changes with these sweet, sweet tunes. I often forget about the sprint shoes B-dash thing sometimes, because I'm so used to just not running all that fast, so. Hey, Arusta, thank you for subbing with Prime. Appreciate it. All of our Prime subscriptions or subscriptions on Twitch will go towards charities that our community is running in. We are doing the Final Fantasy 1 Summer Rando. I believe it's June 18th is when One Free Fits is doing his run. I have an event set up in Discord, so we'll probably be donating our money towards that. Join our Discord if you want to find out some more about the game, as Overswarm gets his second piece of Magicite, and that is his second boss down. Strength plus 2 and Life and Cure 2. That's also a pretty good Esper. Very nice.
Yeah, because that life spell is actually the best life spell you're going to get, because Life 2 is banned.
Yeah, so Curse Ring is normally a great thing to see for a steal, but unfortunately you can't learn X-Zone in this flag set, so that is just a useless relic to donate for some couch cash. Get out of my way, Sword Tech guy. So there is an NPC dialogue tips Google Doc, I think, that Franklin had started. So if you want to suggest some NPC dialogue tips, you certainly can, start requesting some of them in the Google Doc. I don't know exactly where it's linked. It might be on a wiki page somewhere. But yeah, you certainly can do that. It's probably in the Discord somewhere.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Overswarm showing off the steals being randomized, getting just a gold shield from the pugs. Yippee.
Yeah, that's a feels bad there. Normally pugs will give you some sweet Minervas, but not with random steals. And it looks like it's Ultros time. So we'll get to hear the sweet sounds of Grand Finale. Meanwhile, Overswarm heading into the cave to the sealed gate. We'll pick up their go-go at the end if they decide to continue all the way through. Be interesting to see if they also decide to do the sealed gate ninja for a second pair of sprint shoes. Because remember, you can have up to 3 in Kefka's tower, right? So.
Yeah, though if you really need to, I mean, party 1 you can sort of just leave at the start the entire time. So if you only have two pairs of sprint shoes, maybe go all the way with 2 and 3, and then just swap it over and let 1 run through the tower.
Yeah. And it is Rexall. So it looks like Bosch Nasty found some Super Balls, and this is not the fight for having a Super Ball here, unfortunately, with the multiple parts to this boss. But it doesn't matter, because he doesn't have any bosses killed, so all of his bosses are level 3, so 1 Super Ball will do it.
Yep, meanwhile, Overswarm buying Raiden from the Zen Thief. Has not checked the spells yet, so we'll see what happens once they do.
Yeah, so there is a Kefka Tower skip at 10 Espers. It's not the Kefka unlock, so that's why you see the gold number there. The Kefka unlock is 15 bosses defeated, and with our starting characters, we have plenty of boss options to choose from, with Magitek Factory giving us 4. Terra, with her Mobliz check, actually is 2 different bosses, counts as 2 being defeated, so that's always a nice one to have as well in your back pocket.
Oh, it does. Oh, word. Yeah, I didn't check all the details.
Yeah, and so Bosch going here to Luthie's chest, and then probably gonna check the Welk, and then Kefka at Narsh. So that would be 2 more bosses for them.
Yeah, so you saw a bit of the different flavored text there. It just said that "Welcome to Worlds Collide," blah blah blah. By the way, everybody can wear a Moogle Charm in standard flags, which is, nice, I guess, for a tip. Sure, why not?
Good item
yeah, so to answer a question in chat, there is no real penalty for grabbing free progression in this flag set. Oh, the flags I completely butchered there. My bad.
Yeah, so right now this particular setting flag set for tonight is that scaling just happens with bosses and dragons. And I believe it is 2.5 times.
No, it's 3.
Oh, 3 times. Thank you. But they do have to kill 15 bosses. So by the end of the seed, you will be hitting the max level of 45.
Yep. And if you do take a dragon, you'll get to that max sooner before the end of the seed, right? So. Yeah,
though that'll be an interesting strategy. We'll have to see, probably depending on how the Espers play out, is that there are 5 bosses in Kefka's tower. So technically you could probably enter Kefka's tower at 10 bosses if you felt like you could take what you needed to take, not die on the way there.
Yeah, the only problem is if you go there relatively early, right, you're splitting your XP up amongst multiple party members, by killing off the bosses in the tower. So, Overswarm has 3 bosses, I believe. No, 2 bosses, excuse me. And Bosch Nasty has 1 from the Opera House Disruption. So we're going to see some new information on the left-hand side of the screen. Unfortunately, a dead check for the Opera House, which always feels bad. But at least you're getting some levels. So how I've experienced this particular flag set is the first few bosses feel pretty easy, and then it starts to get more difficult there. And in Kefka's Tower, the bosses are a lot more difficult than usual. So we'll see how that plays out in this seed. Again, I might have just gotten unlucky with both boss placement and party composition.
Yeah, and I think one thing that is really going to affect that is long term is the fact that a lot of the abilities a lot of the magic you would normally rely on Kefka's Tower, being able to toss some level 3 spells and take advantage of weakness or life 2 if you need it, things like that, quick, all that stuff is banned, all the top tier magic. So you're really going to have to rely on having good commands and really being ready.
That's right. No Merton, no Pearl, none of that stuff. We do, however, get an Odin with Berserk and Doom, so the Espers are being kind to our runners. Even though there aren't the top-tier spells, there still are decent ones. And Bosch Nasty hemming and hawing right now over Kefka at Narsh. He's got 5 characters, so he'll be able to do this with his full party. And remember, Kefka at Narsh was updated with our last update to drop you off in Arvis's house instead of leaving you up here. So I like this play now. It gets one of your bosses out of the way, and you're already halfway up here.
I agree, especially since, in a normal seed, you might think, oh, well, maybe I want to wait till Mog, but since you're counting on bosses rather than on checks or espers or characters, it doesn't really, I'm not sure it ever would really make sense to run up here just for Mog. So, you can just basically say, well, whatever esper is up here is going to be up here forever, even if I get Mog.
Yeah, I mean, the reason to go up there is to get an Esper or character without any penalty, right? There is no penalty for doing a non-boss check. Except for time, right? This is a speedrun after all.
Yeah, and the time is the real problem, I think.
Getting past the first line of defense, but whoa, level magic. Run away. No thank you.
Yeah, to answer a question in chat, yes, this is the new version 1.3, which was just released recently. We've sort of been going through some of the changes as we've been going through. One of the biggest changes, the removal of top magic. And then also, if you've seen them open chests and sometimes get a battle rather than just a chest, that's another option that has been added in 1.3 that's really having some effects here.
Yeah, it'll really teach people that over loot not to loot as much. It's a good way to, sort of enforce that. But this is the version on which Ultros League Season 4 is based. So signups are right now for Ultros League Season 4. Check out our Discord if you'd like to sign up for our divisional ladder-like competition that we've got with Ultros League. Alright, it is a Genji glove out of the Opera House, but more importantly, it is boss number 3 for Overswarm. Bosch Nasty getting some more levels here. He doesn't have a lot of offense, right? We see Atma Weapon being used, but that's not going to be effective for a very long time in the game.
Thought I saw that.
Did get a snow muffler out of somewhere recently, so that's a nice pickup.
Yeah, so we have the steals and drops are set to be 50% random, so you might get some pretty gnarly things from just some random fights here. So, and Celeste has steal, so we'll see if that makes any difference here. And it's Narapa, who normally I would say, hey, let's just use our X Zone that we have.
Our X Zone that we do not have.
Yeah, the bosses are scaled based on, the enemies rather, are scaled on the number of bosses defeated times 3.
Oh, it's a heal.
Or bosses and dragons, rather, times 3. So.
Oof, and Narapa absorbs fire, and Terra's, I believe, wielding the Flame Saber.
Yeah, it's never fun. But there it goes. Kind of a pushover when you have only one boss defeated. It basically means that your bosses are level 3.
That was the third boss, because also took the Welk spot.
Oh, that's right. You're right. Getting a very important Esper there, Golem. Some nice calmness protection for the end battle.
Absolutely, and then on Overswarm's side, going to take this Atma weapon, so that'll be the 4th boss they've got.
Yeah, so we just reached over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, but if you are not subbed to our YouTube channel, that's where all of our races are uploaded after they appear on Twitch. So thank you all for hanging out with us on Twitch and interacting with us live. But in case you missed something, you could always go back and watch it later. I loved watching races when I was first starting. I still love watching races because you learn something new pretty much every single time you watch. So that's a place to find our races that we poured over from Twitch. Also some video on demands of our recent tournament called the Blackjack Battle Royale, which I believe the finals is tomorrow, right? At 9?
Correct. The finals is tomorrow.
Yeah, so around this very same time on this very same channel, make sure you come back and watch the Blackjack Battle Royale finals between Falcon Hit and Perroquet Naris, 2 of our excellent runners, one of which has won the past either 2 tournaments or 1 tournament, and one runner is a bit newer to the community compared to Falcon Hit. However, he did develop a stats companion app, which is wonderful to use. I highly recommend doing it to improve on your Worlds Collide times for sure. So
yeah, absolutely. And I really like this play here by Bosch to go do the Magitek Factory here. Oof, that is not what you want to see, though.
We did learn Berserk, so thankfully this fight...
Fuck, no.
That is what happens when you accidentally berserk your berserk caster instead of the boss.
There. I just berserked the person that had berserk.
Oh,
Fortunately,
no.
Bosch did just save, so and has warp stones. So if they wanted,
oh, did he save right there? Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a big F in the chat for him. Hopefully, he'll cast berserk on the right person this time. So Magimaster will normally change his weakness after every turn, but now that we've got Berserk, he can't cast any spells, so that wall change ability is no more. Now, the difficult thing is going to be, how do we damage him? Because these normal weapons is going to be very difficult, because Magimaster is very high physical defense and very high evade. We do have Dispatch, which does cut defense, and we have an Offering with Atma Weapon, which will always hit, but after that, yikes. We're not really quite sure.
I believe Bosch might still have
and we have Pummel.
a Super Ball somewhere.
Yeah, if he's got a Super Ball, now is the time to use it. Meanwhile, on the other side of the screen, Overswarm is going to pick up his Golem, along with his next boss kill, so that will bring him up to 5.
Correct, and then at that point, I wouldn't be surprised to see Overswarm either follow Bosch into the factory here, or maybe do Mobliz, because you want to see if you can get a couple bosses at a time.
Yeah, the only difficult thing about Mobliz is you do need to only have 2 characters to fight the boss, because 2 of them get blown away, and that is Magimaster down. Better to find him early than to find him late. You know, that was his 3rd boss, so he was only a level 6 Magimaster. Level 9 Magimaster, rather. So, Mag Power +1 on that Palador. That'll be nice to put on Strago, who's got Blitz. Most of the Blitzes are magic power based.
Yeah, and that's also why, if you're wondering why Bosch has 2 Blizzard Orbs equipped on the same person, because those +5 magic power early in the seed is actually surprisingly helpful.
I haven't been seeing Setzer doing any magic casts, unfortunately. Most of the sword techs are physical damage based. There are a couple that are magical based, 5 and 6 to name 2, but we are certainly not at that level yet.
Yeah, and I have to say, I also like the idea there of going back and saving and healing up, just because you have no idea what you might be fighting at the second one. Having got past Magimaster, you don't want to deal with that again.
Yeah, so Overswarm will get the bad news, and we'll see what the second boss is here. It's a relatively easy one after dealing with the last one. Overswarm going for some additional chests here. Hopefully he does not pull a monster in a box out of one of these. Just remember, there is a 10% chance that a chest that you open contains a random battle.
And a 1% chance it contains a random boss, though we have not seen any of those yet.
Thank goodness. Ooh!
And I
don't need to wait until Magimaster to get your Mega Elixir. It was there in the chest all along.
Well, which is very good, because steals are randomized, so you might not get your Mega Elixir from Magimaster.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Good call.
Overswarm showing some of the DLC content chests here.
Oop, that was the wrong counter. Yeah, so you see Golem has got that little star next to it for Celeste. That means that Celeste has learned all of the spells on Golem. Right, so that's that quality of life NPC, or not NPC, Esper Mastery flag. So that will certainly help a lot of newer runners to get out of the menu, although it might be counterintuitive, because I certainly don't think it's going to stay on in race flags, but certainly for a more casual play, it will definitely be more helpful. Alright, so we could have warped out at Magitek 2 after that other boss Ultras 2, but Bosch Nasty decides there are 2 more bosses left on this minecart. So let's go take those 2 on. Very good density of bosses here in the Magitek Factory, and it's a guaranteed character or Esper at the end of it. Not that we need characters or Espers, right? We're going boss unlocks Kefka.
Yeah, but you probably wouldn't mind getting another character if you can find one along the way, just because that allows you to have 2 characters in each party when you do the split in the statues. And that second character, even if it's low level and not super useful, can still toss some Phoenix Downs or Revivifies or whatever you need to bail you out if you need to.
Yeah, when I did 1 or 2 of my practice seeds, I ended up in some instances with only 5 characters, and it's a bit difficult to solo a boss, even if it's a character that you know is going to be pretty powerful. So good heads up thinking there. Alright, so Overswarm learned Berserk, so this Magimaster fight shouldn't be that big of a problem. There's 1 more forced encounter here on the minecart before we get to our boss, so this will be the last one here.
Yeah, and that's also one of the other nice things here about having this is you hopefully get a little bit of experience from it. These are kind of crummy enemies, so not as much experience as you might hope, but do still look for some more levels. So that's also a nice benefit.
Ooh, so we saw Little Brother, and now we've got the buffed up version, Atma, here. So Atma will absorb all of the non-traditional elements, of which Pearl is one of them, and Aura Bolt is a Pearl-based blitz, so that's why you see Bosch Nasty substituting with Pummel there for Strago. Yeah, moving around with sprint shoes and B-dash is an interesting thing to get used to here. A lot more bonking when you do that, for sure.
Yeah, it also throws off a lot of your muscle memory as to when you switch from going left to move up, or etc.
Alright, so we'll see how Overswarm deals with Ultros here. It looks like their levels are pretty similar. Maybe Overswarms are a little bit higher, although it depends on the last time that Bosch was able to get healed. Ooh, Water Edge. Enhance. Yeah, so we see both of our runners pulling out the Atma weapon, even though they're way too low in levels for it, because they just don't have a heck of a lot of other options here as far as offense goes.
Yeah, I mean, even though they're low level, you can see the Atma weapon is still doing comparable damage to what you're seeing from the physical attacks they're using from... I believe one of Bosch's characters at one point was using like a fire knuckle to attack.
Yep, and here we have it. So Overswarm completed his 10 checks, so he now has the auto overcast status. So we're going to see if any of his team members go down. They're going to have to come back with a Revivify, and it's Sabin Natural Dance, Natural Magic. And yet another Ultros. We've seen 3 Ultroses so far, haven't we? Ultros 1 in the sky, Ultros 2 at Magitek 2, and now Ultros 3 at Magitek 3. So.
Yep, we just need to find the Ultros and Cheapon
to complete our purple trifecta.
Quadfecta.
Quadfecta, yep, there you go. I swear, I can math. JK.
And we just need to be able to count to 10 for the number of bosses.
Yeah, so with Sabin, normally that's a character you like to see because his checks are normally pretty fast and they are usually pretty well clumped together, but unfortunately, only 3 of his 5 checks have bosses with them. So we'll see if our runners decide to shy away from those non-boss checks, as there is the auto overcast for Bosch Nasty and Overswarm stealing some thunder shields from these mechanics. What are they doing with those?
I don't know, but you are very glad to see those. Bosch going straight to the falls here, which looks like makes a lot of sense. Because a lot of the times you'll see people dip in to do the Phantom Train, then the falls. But in terms of a seed where you're really only looking for bosses, the Phantom Train is a long walk to get your just one boss.
Yeah, so Bosch has 5 bosses defeated according to his tracker. No, excuse me, 6. I forgot Kefka Norse is down there. Whereas Overswarm is at 7 right now.
Yeah, I think that's it, right?
So, and scaling is bosses times 3. Bosses plus dragons times 3. So, Bosch slightly behind, but his scaling is also a lot easier as down goes leader without much of a problem. Dropping a flame shield, all sorts of elemental shields going on here with the random drops.
Yeah, and I believe that is boss number 7 for Bosch.
Yeah, so right now we are tied in terms of boss kills. That is another Esper, and my mistake, I must have spoke out of turn. There is the auto overcast status, so we'll see if that affects our runners. Having to use Revivifies to get our characters back. Now, unlike in the Goddess fight, you won't have the countdown timer. It just is a... If your character dies, they turn into a zombie instead of being... I think it's called wounded, right? The technical term?
Yeah, rather than being called wounded, because, you know, early 90s Nintendo, you can't call dead, just wounded.
That's absolutely correct. All right, we'll see where Bosch decides to turn next. Meanwhile, Overswarm gonna be fighting the boss here, I believe. That was his third fixed encounter. Yep. You can check what the reward is in the caboose, and it is a murder child with fight and health. So, since Bosch Nasty decided to bring it along, he gets to bring Realm along. Now, normally in normal scaling, that means you also scale up the scaling of the seed. But since scaling in this seed is only based on the number of bosses and dragons you've killed, and not based on the progression you have, you could pick up Realm without really any consequences here.
Yeah, and I like the check of the shop there and loading up on Revivifies, because, as you said, Overcast is now in effect, so you really want to make sure you've got plenty of Revivifies to bail you out if need to be.
Yeah, your Phoenix Downs are now useless except for killing undead stuff. So we finally have a longer version of the lightsaber there on on Bosch Nasty's screen. We've finally gotten up to enough levels, and oh, an experience egg out of that drop. Did you see that?
Yeah, that's
incredible.
Going right away to equip that, and that is a 100% correct call there, because you still have a decent amount of fights before you're at your levels, so giving it to your offering Atma weapon user is really going to help them out.
Yeah, so in Worlds Collide, there is a concept called permadeath, which is not on in this particular seed, but it means once your characters are dead, they can only be brought from a Phoenix Down, and if you run out of those, then you're SOL, right? You can't use a healing bucket or a tent or an inn or anything like that. So it's slightly different than in, you know, that other Final Fantasy game. All right, let's see what the boss is at the Phantom Train. Ooh, how are we going to deal with this?
I think you rely primarily on your well, Blitz's Fire Dance, so that's actually very helpful. And then you've got Defense Ignoring Dispatch, which we'll see here.
Yeah. I believe Terra has that Fire Knuckle, so that could actually work here. And then Celeste's Atma weapons, which are Defense Ignoring.
To answer in question in chat as to who we say is ahead here, before they got the Experience Egg, I probably would have said Overswarm, but Bosch having that Experience Egg to power up the Atma weapon very well might make it so Bosch kills stuff much faster, you know, really speeds up their time later in the seed.
Yeah, so Overswarm grabbing Sabin from that check. That is his 9th boss. Whereas, let's see, how many does Bosch Nasty have? He's got 5, there's 6, 7, 8, 9.
I think this is 9.
So this will be 10 here. So they're even on bosses. But yeah, it's very difficult. Unfortunately, Overswarm is doing the exact same stuff that Bosch is doing just a couple of minutes afterwards. So, not that it's a bad thing, because again, you know, it doesn't matter which characters and espers we've got. We have our calmness protection, so that's at least good. And we just need to kill bosses. Yeah, we just have to kill bosses at this junction. So it's, what are my checks that have the fastest time to the boss?
So here's the question. Once you get your 10th boss, do you take a dragon or something, or do you just jump into Kefka's tower? Because they're both going to be high 20s, low 30s at absolute most.
Yeah, so the thing is, the bosses won't be that high scaled. They won't be too bad, right? Because right now they'll be level 30 at 10 bosses, which is not bad for Kefka's tower. But each subsequent boss you kill is going to level up the other bosses, so it gets to be a bit dodgy, you know?
Yeah, especially since, we've seen some of the easy bosses and some of the hard bosses, so, there's plenty of things that could be out there.
But yeah, I take, some dragons to level up after I get to 10 bosses, for sure. Because I don't want to have to kill more bosses than I need to.
Yeah, and especially since, while you do have those bosses in Kefka's tower, you would also need to split up your party, so you're not really getting full experience from the stuff.
Alright, so Overswarm doesn't care what this reward is, he just knows that this is 2 bosses here. And it is a ghost sprite, so this won't be a character, it will be either an Esper or an item. So unfortunately we don't get to show off the change where the mobilist character will join you at party average instead of level 3. But I like this play here, getting 2 bosses out of the way in one check.
Yeah, especially since Overswarm is at 8 out of 10 Espers. So at this point, taking some more bosses in the overworld that can lead you to Espers really will probably pay off rather than having to do all the walk through KT. So you want to make sure you're close enough that you can get to, with just the statue bosses, get where you need to go.
Yeah, so there is that Kefka Tower skip at 10 Espers, so if you're Overswarm, do you look for checks that are peekable, that you could say, hey, this might reward me with an Esper, let's go do this, instead of just stumbling into the fastest check possible?
Yeah, I mean, I think I do. I think the one caveat, I don't know if have they done the Search the Skies yet? Because if not, that is faster than almost all of the remaining peekable checks. So
yes,
even though it's not technically peekable, it's still close enough.
Yes, he has done that. That was Ultros 1.
Got it.
All right, another Esper for Bosch Nasty. That is Kieran.
Yeah, it was.
So we'll see. He now has, I think that is his 10th boss. Let me count here. 1, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Kefka at Narcissus 10. So that's his 10th boss. So if he wanted to, he can go into Kefka's tower now and unlock Kefka at the very end. But I don't know if he's going to do that with his levels. They're just under 30 here, except for his experience egg using. Looks like we're going to Mount Cults, and actually there is a change in Mount Cults. With sprint shoes, you could actually run in front of Vargas at the very end of Mount Cults and beat him to the cave. We moved some event tiles around, so that can't happen anymore. So unfortunately, you will always lose this race against Vargas. And it's fine if you end up in the cave. You just would have to come back out and say hi to Vargas and then initiate the battle. But it was just an awkward thing where, Vargas would beat you to the next spot.
Yeah.
But yeah, he just barely did not make it, like I said. Yeah, this Chatternaught fight is going to take a little bit here. No access to Fire or Pearl, which is the weakness of Chatternaught. Do have Aurabolt from Strago, and did get through it with some ice spells from Terra. So very nicely done here.
Yeah, and I believe that is 12.
Yeah, so that's going to be his 12th boss, but unfortunately, that is a Flame Shield.
Okay. I mean, I still can't really... I don't know if I could take Kefka yet. I'm sure he's...
I guess you
everything
can.
inside is probably scaled to 40.
Right? It's just...
And statues might be in their natural spot.
You guys just won't know how many dragons everybody killed, but that's okay.
Yeah, meanwhile, Bosch getting another Esper, so...
Well, I have to defeat 15. Gotcha. I thought it was 10.
Yeah, I think our runners... I mean, you just heard Boschi in the background say, oh, I thought it was 10 bosses and not 15. He's thinking that you only have to defeat 10 before going into KT, and you could end up unlocking it at the last boss. So, he's got the right mathematical idea.
Yeah, but at the levels they're at, I kind of like the idea of doing a few more checks before you try to dip in, and even though you might end up with an extra boss or two, I think getting a few more levels is probably going to pay itself off in the long run.
Yeah, it's the trade-off. The bosses are going to be more difficult in KT, and here you see on Overswarm's screen, Terra is now a zombie instead of dead, so we got to pick her back with a Revivify, and this is from a Battle in a Clock. So this is one of the new things that in this flag set, where you can have chest speed monster in the box. Is another steal of an experience egg. Wow. So maybe Overswarm notices that and goes, oh, I don't want to kill this thing yet. Unfortunately, I think his attacks were already queued up. But now at least both of the runners have experience eggs, which is nice.
Yeah, meanwhile, on Bosch's side, the steal from the pugs, rather than being a nice Minerva, was just some generic stuff. So
yeah, a warp stone instead of a Minerva. That's a feels bad moment.
Yeah, the game taketh, the game giveth away.
All right, so we'll see who's at the Daddy Luma spot. It's just a snail.
Yeah, though, with that offering, this is not the greatest place to have offering.
Yeah, this offense is not built for a untargetable or a thing that you need to target, right? Because he's got Zoratech, he's got Blitz, he's got offering. So, and there goes Welcome to the Gru Hole. So, bit of a time loss here, which is kind of annoying. And by kind of, I mean really annoying. Because again, this is supposed to be one of the pushover bosses from the beginning of the game, right?
Yeah. Overswarm going to show off one of the changes here, I believe. Going to see if they'll stop at the auction house. Because one of the changes in 1.3 is that rather than always having potentially up to 2 espers, you can now set whether you want the maximum of 1 or the maximum of 0 to completely disable the check. And in these flags, we actually have set a maximum of 1 esper. So it's a bit less of a, hey, you could get tons of progression here.
Yeah, I think 1 is much more fair than 2, right?
Oh, right. But that's
and without doing no free progression, it's a good way to turn off the auction house as sort of a way to get ahead in the seed.
Yeah.
All right, so that's
meanwhile getting the force armor, not what you were looking for there.
That's another boss for Bosch Nasty, so he's up to 12 now.
Now the question is, does the Fumbaba fight count as 2 bosses?
It does, Bosch.
I'm in the wrong place.
So yeah, instead of the normal dialogue, that guy Overswarm just talked to says, hit the 3rd switch from the left, and now we're down into the Opera House Dragon. So this is sort of what I was talking about before, right? Where there's different flavor text. So it looks like Overswarm is getting primed for Kefka's Tower, right? Taking on the dragon here instead of taking on yet another boss. It will increase the scaling either way, but...
Yeah, but already being at 12 bosses, it's pretty close to max level already, so...
Yep. The maximum scaling is 45, so if you do a little math, 45 divided by 3 is 15. So any combination of 15 bosses and dragons will get you the max scaling. So some of his bosses in KT will be slightly harder than if you just ignore the dragons altogether, but that's one of those, you know, cost-benefit analysis things, right? Do I need the XP from this dragon more than, you know, it giving me that bad detriment? So that's 12 bosses, 1 dragon there for Overswarm. I think we saw Daryl's Tomb already. Yeah, that was what Overswarm did earlier on in the scene with Crusader. Looks like it's time for KT here.
And I like the stop to save first, just see what you got.
Yeah, so his levels are in the mid-30s now. This is a lot more comfortable for the tower. Notably, though, he only has 5 characters, so he can't really overload party number 3 here. So it looks like he's just going to go in as is with just the 5. So this is something to keep in mind. This will be a difference between him and Bosch Nasty, who will have more quote-unquote meat shields to use.
Meat shields and item bots.
Yeah, the other thing is your solo character, normally you don't have to worry about the Moogle Charm, right? But you're taking away one of the relic slots. He decides to say, wait a minute, I don't want to actually use that Revivify. I want to instead.
Yeah, this is a case where you'd much rather use Phoenix. Meanwhile, Bosch's levels are mid-30s, with the Atma weapon user at 38, so probably whenever Bosch feels ready to go, in a decent spot.
Yeah, I wonder what Overswarm is digging around for, or if he's just digging for levels.
Could just be hoping to find a couple decent experienced battles, of which Allosaurus is definitely one.
Just about, right? Do dragons count? We're gonna find out.
Yeah, and to answer a question in chat, one of the changes in 1.3 is that monsters in a box can be in any chest now. It's not necessarily the originals, it can be basically any random battle starting in a chest, and in this particular flag set, it's 10% chance of regular enemies and a 1% chance of finding a random boss.
Oh, this is not a fun boss to find. And that's not a good opener here from Storm Dragon. So that gives us a chance to show off the overcast, or the auto overcast rather, turning Setzer into a zombie here instead of having him wounded. So he'll have to get a Revivify on him. Zombies do not get XP from fights. Meanwhile, it's Doom, one of the statue bosses over for Overswarm. What up, Moogleplex, with your party of 8? Welcome to the race. In case you're just joining us here, we're doing a showcase of some new flags and options for version 1.3, and that is going to be the version on which the upcoming Ultras League Season 4 is based on. Not all of these options are going to be included in the Ultras League flag set, obviously, but just showcasing what you could do with the randomizer if you want to play around with it, tinker with it. It's one of my favorite things about the rando is that there are a lot of different options you could choose. It can be somewhat intimidating at first, but it also allows for great replayability and infinite sort of customization.
Absolutely. And
I was going to say, one thing I did not mention is that there are also some brand new sprites. So if you're one of those people that likes changing the sprites of the different characters or even the enemies or Kefka, I probably should have changed Kefka's sprite to something new, huh? That would have been nice. Anyway, there's tons of new sprites available with 1.3. So big shout out to Hawksnorf, who did a lot of those sprites. So I'm sorry I interrupted you before you were going to say something else.
I was going to say there's an interesting question in chat with the boss progression being rather than character or Esper. You think it incentivizes looking for good grind fights rather than checks? And I would say I think it does to some extent, depending on just how far out of the way you have to go for those grind fights. So like Overswarm just opening chests as they were running by him and hoping they were good chests, good experience fights, that I think makes sense. I think if you're trying to remove your Moogle charm or something like that to run around for grind fights, that's probably not a play that's really going to pay off in terms of time.
Interesting conundrum here for Bosch Nasty. He has his Kefka unlock. He will have his Kefka unlock after this check, but he also has 9 Espers. So he is going to do this Mobliss fight. I don't remember what the reward was, if it was an Esper or an item. I remember
it was a shield of some kind.
Ugh, that feels bad. Yeah, so this will actually count as 2 bosses here in this Mobliss fight, because you do get credit for killing Fun Baba, even though he just blows you away. So this is always a nice one to get when you have an objective for the number of bosses you need to kill. Right, in one of the draft cards, there is a Kefka unlock at 6 characters, 9 Espers, and 16 bosses. So this is usually a check that's very nice to see. Setzer, unfortunately, listening to too much cranberries, he is a zombie.
Yep, and we just saw Bosch unlocked final Kefka objective complete. And that also means that Bosch is now at the max scaling of 45, so any further boss kills is not going to increase scaling at all.
Not good fight either.
I think that's the 3rd dragon horn we've seen. There was 1 earlier in the seed and then 2 from dragons. I mean, that makes sense, right? But we have no Dragoon builds, unfortunately, for any of our characters. That would have been interesting to see if we could have forced one of those.
Yeah, I don't think either runner even found Dragoon boots.
I saw it in a shop somewhere. It wasn't something that we just had off the shelf, right? So. Yeah, it's an interesting conundrum, Keith, between do you go for skip or not. So here's sort of how to break it down mathematically, right? So Kefka Tower skip usually saves anywhere around like 5 to 7 minutes, depending upon how difficult the boss is at the Inferno spot, right? Based on the walking and things like that. So if your check that you're going to do, you could do it in under 5 minutes and it's going to get you an Esper, then I would do it. You could probably do 2 checks in 5 minutes if you're really quick about it. So even if the first one gets screwed up, if you do the second one, you might be able to do it. Now, if you get both of them as dead checks, then you've just unfortunately sunk your your battleship, right? So that's sort of the judgment that I usually use between deciding should I go get skip or should I not get skip.
Absolutely, and one thing as well here that would play into it, especially on Overswarm's side if they had chosen to do this, is just what you need in terms of levels. Because typically a check will get you at least a boss. Most of them do. So, if you feel like, hey, I need a little bit more power, you say it's 5 to 7 minutes, and that's technically true, but if you get a couple more levels and it makes you stronger, that can save you some time later too.
Yeah. There's multiple different ways to go. Going and doing Kefka's Tower is its own sort of metagame, right? Because you could do things where you overload one party and clear out the first boss and the dragon to get extra levels if you're feeling, under-leveled sort of thing. Or you can even go kill Toilet Atma in the case of this seed, right? If you needed 15 bosses, and if you thought you were good to go at 9, there's actually 6 in the tower. So there's a lot of cool things you could do with boss scat with Kefka Tower party jumbling.
Yeah, though the one thing to note about that Atma or Toilet Atma spot is that you would, if you want to overload your party, you kind of need more than the 5 characters that Overswarm came in with.
Yep. Yeah, so he could not do that strategy. And this is, as you said, him juggling the sprint shoes around to different parties, right? Putting it on the one that does the most walking. So that's party 3 at the beginning, then party 2, then party 1, then back to party 3. And we'll see what our Guardian spot is. So this will be Overswarm's 14th boss. Oof. Little French
14th boss, but Overswarm also has 2 dragons done, so already at max scaling here.
Yeah, so this is a level 45 Inferno that's already killed his Setzer. And it looks like Bosch is deciding that he does not want to try for Skip after doing the mobilist check, and it was unfruitful for him, so he's just going to go in and going to set up his party to split it the way we normally would. Ooh, this is getting dangerous here.
I do like pausing to see if you've got any shields, because sort of knowing that the kind of attacks that you're going to get from Inferno here, if you can equip a good shield, that could really save your butt here.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing is Inferno has so many different elemental type of attacks that it might be difficult to predict, right? Because he could do Atomic Ray, which is a fire-based attack. He could use a lot of lightning attacks, and then he could do some other things that are other different elements here. And Delta Hit, yikes. Taking out Terror. So, let's get her back. Just being a true meanie, this Inferno here. Meanwhile, Bosch Nasty is into Kefka's tower.
Yeah, and Overswarm really showing off that overcast issue here.
Yep. Yeah, so this is the fun loop that you can get into sometimes with auto overcast is you could bring back somebody with zombie and you have to use Revivify, but then your character's health is super duper low. So when you have parties of 2, like it is here, it tends to get interesting, we'll say. As that is a X Magic wham bam. Thank you, ma'am. See you later for Inferno. Meanwhile, another monster in a box check here from Bosch Nasty. Maybe we can ask them afterwards if they were looking for battles or if they were looking for items, right?
Yeah, and showing off a really interesting thing there is had his Celeste queued up to use a Revivify in Aloe Vera, then got zombified, so instead the zombie targeted the opposite party, which means using the Revivify on his own party.
Yeah, and you hate to waste those, right? Ooh, this is another yucky fight, the tentacles. Thankfully we have access to Doom, so the bottom left tentacle is susceptible to instant death.
Doom, and I believe Setzer also just showed off, has haste too, so if you're concerned about getting grabbed and held up, haste actually stops you from getting slow, which is required before the seizure goes off.
Yeah, that's a really great point there. We don't use a lot of those status, spells a lot, but certainly they can come in handy when you've got some interesting things going on here. Yeah, so thankfully Terad does have that X magic ability, even though, it is a bit slower than just using regular magic, right? We don't have access to tier 3 elemental spells because of the top magic unlearnable flag that we have. And we also see the tentacle getting healed with some blue numbers to kind of differentiate it from, sort of an accessibility flag there, which I think is pretty nice. It helps definitely when dealing with enemy healing stuff, because the enemy healing stuff sometimes doesn't show up in that green color that we're all used to.
Yeah, just got the unlock right there off the statue boss. And a level 50 Terra, which can't complain about that one.
Yep, Boss Nasty taking down Doom for him. And his Celeste, before even getting through the rest of the tower, is at 46. So we're gonna have some pretty beefy ladies here in the final fight for these two. Yeah, you feel like you're crawling after using sprint shoes, B-dash, and doing the regular walk. Oh, look who decided to come down and say hi. It's a little Kefka before Kefka.
Wants to scout out the opposition. Know what he's up against.
It's the appetizer Kefka before the entree Kefka. Are you saying Kefka is like a pig in a blanket? Alright, so Bosch deciding to take down that other dragon as well. Because, you know, as you mentioned at this point, the dragon scaling can't hurt you because you already have reached the maximum level. At this point, it's just giving you free XP. It just only costs you some time, right?
Yeah. I mean, and that blue dragon did not cost much time because Apple Weapon Celeste is just absolutely crushing stuff.
Alright, so Overswarm has one more boss left to go. Predictions in chat. What do you think this last boss is going to be?
We've been dealing with Overcast the entire time. I feel like it would be appropriate if it was Goddess.
That would mean that we've seen Doom, Inferno, and Goddess all in KT, which is kind of nasty. We do have our fourth Ultros, our Ultros Chupon friends, so I'll be nice to the runners and I'll go for the Ultros 4 for 4. Who else do we have? We got Tunnel Armor, Red Pants Man. I believe you're talking about Dataluma. We have not seen Spicy Chicken, speaking of food items.
I mean, we could see Marshall accompanied by something mean.
Yeah, I mean, Marshall and Ogors would be appropriate, right? For an Overcast zombie seed. I don't know if Brachiosaurus can hang out with the Marshalls. I believe they're the Tyrannosaurs, right?
Yeah, I think it's Tyrannosaurs that can hang out.
I mean, they're not fun either way. Overswarm taking off the Moogle Charm here. See, that's the problem with the one party member is you have to take off the Moogle Charm right before the fight to equip your good relics. And oh, it's Fun Baba. This will be an interesting one because Fun Baba usually likes to counterattack everything with lightning-based magic. So we'll see if he's got a spare Thunder Shield somewhere.
I believe Overswarm did get all the shields. I don't know if it's already equipped or up for grabs.
Yeah, this fight's going to take a while just because swinging with one Atma weapon is not going to be fun. Yeah, so there you see the blue numbers coming up. So we do have the Thunder Shield on Celeste. So I don't want to make a curse, but you basically can't lose this fight. It's just going to take a while. Meanwhile, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Meanwhile, you can see on Bosch Nasty's side just the power of having your best character up against Inferno. This fight took Overswarm quite a while, and Celeste is just crushing it.
Yeah, Fun Baba has lots of HP because he skips leg day every day. He is a beefy character. Oh boy! Remember what I said about cursing and I shouldn't say anything?
Fortunately,
My bad.
Overswarm has already
bad.
gotten through the other bosses, so like has saved, so just figuring out a way to get past this.
So even though we can't use Ultima, other bosses certainly can. and suddenly we have a bit of a closer race here with this wall on this side. A literal beefy wall. So we'll see if Overswarm just goes right back in or if he changes up his approach a little bit. Yeah, that was my fault, chat. I take full responsibility.
Oof, and actually, one thing I don't know if you noticed, but this is level 32. This is actually, I believe, Overswarm's weakest main character.
Yeah, and he did not have full health to start the fight either last time, so that's a precaution that he took here with using some potions and deciding to get another fight under his belt. This fight will certainly give him a lot of XP, but it's going to take a little bit. And one thing you have to be careful with evil Oscars is they will use Sour Mouth, which will do all sorts of nasty status ailments on your party. Yeah, Bosch Nasty's Celeste is doing so much more damage. So he's cutting through bosses like ribbons over here. Where was the offering?
So Bosch Nasty got offerings from one of a store. I want to say Albrook, maybe?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he bought it with... He used all of the last of his money to go get it. It was a cool 60-something thousand GP, so... He's living that life of luxury there. And we do have some pretty good spells for our party to use in terms of Esper summons. We've got Odin, and Shoat, and Bahamut, and Golem, and Palador, and Unicorn, and Kirin. Those are all, like, pretty good final Kefka Espers. We have, like, 7 of them. Alright, Overswarm getting through Fun Baba. Oh no, I'm sorry, that wasn't Fun Baba. That was a different green sprite. That was just the Mad Oscars.
Yeah, just cranking another 2. Look like gained about 2 levels there. Meanwhile, on Bosch Nasty's side for this Fun Baba, Terra's a few levels higher and also is currently equipped with the Minerva.
Yep. And more importantly, if... well, never mind. I was going to say, more importantly, if there comes an Ultima, it will get split damage against both of the targets, but that's not the case. Or is that not the case? I don't remember if Ultima does split damage or not.
I don't think it does, but also Bosch Nasty did more in 1 turn than Overswarm does in like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So Bosch Nasty might just knock it out before it has the chance to do anything negative. Because Fun Baba is weak to bio.
Sabin wants out of this zombie life. Yeah, having X Magic with double bio doing about 8 and change thousand per turn is pretty nice. Yeah, in this case, you don't even want to waste the Revivify. The only worry is Sabin does have that Wing Edge, and if he accidentally throws it at Terra, and that Wing Edge happens to proc, then that would be... I should stop talking. You know, forget I said anything.
Just causing trouble over here.
Oh, God. Taking deep breaths every time Sabin goes. Meanwhile, Overswarm absorbs a Meteor like a ShamWow from Celeste, and there it is! Getting past his final boss. Oh my god.
Freaking A. I blame you for that one.
Alright, I'm just gonna stop predicting things or talking about things or... Everything's fine. This is fine. I'm sorry, guys. You can totally blame me for that one.
Yeah, I told you, right after I thought it, I knew it was like,
So in Ultros League, we scale up to level 40, and these bosses are level 45, so they might be a bit more difficult than our runners are used to. Right, so that's something to keep in mind here. Especially, you know, you guys saw how long it took both of our parties to get through Fun Baba.
Yeah, though I would say, just based on the kind of damage they were doing, I bet Bosch Nasty was only a turn or two away. But fortunately, giving it, I believe Sabin is now equipped with the Imp Halberd, which is not going to do anything.
Great. Lesson learned. Other lesson learned. Don't let me commentate your race.
Yeah. We know who the real trouble causer here is. So,
other than me, everybody in the community is really nice. So join our Discord. There's the link in the chat there. This way you can, interact with us, roll some seeds of your own, and you can get some feedback and advice on how to get good, if you will.
Yeah, and actually, we are having their signups are going now for Ultros League Season 4, which is the, basically it's a 8-week competition, asynchronous seed, so you don't need to, coordinate times with other people. Just run it whenever during the week you have the time. 1 seed per week. Same flags consistently throughout the setting, so you can sort of see how you're improving, learn from your mistakes, cheer for your successes and apply those lessons, etc. So signups are going now. I believe it starts, that signups end somewhere in the first week of June. I believe the season officially starts on the 10th. Don't quote me on the exact number, but it's somewhere around there. So definitely a good thing to go ahead and get started on. If you've been interested in picking it up or picking up racing, it's a great way to get started. You're paired in your league with 7 or 8 other people, so you have plenty you can compare and say, hey, how are things going? After each week, you can see how other people ran the same seed. Really good way to learn. So strongly recommend joining Ultros League.
Yeah, and it also allows you to, sort of talk with people that have played the same exact seed as you, right? And see what they did and see if maybe there was something you could have improved on. I really like the community. I'm trying to say a word like communitality. Is that a word? Those aren't words.
The community aspect of working together.
There you go. Sure. Anyway, Overswarm is on to the final boss here, doing 8.5k a pop on the head, which is weak to fire. So we want to kill that first. Very nice job. We do have Doom, which will take out the long arm there. So that's sort of the order of operations here. We've got some predictions in the chat of how long we think this fight will take. I am not going to give a prediction because I have predicted some really bad things and they came true. So I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. But if you want to predict a final Kefka time for Overswarm, the chat is the place to be.
But I will say, we are getting a question in chat, and I actually feel proud about knowing something that Kirk Z, our reigning Ultros League champion, does not. Asking about the old Esper menu having a star next to the Esper. That is actually one of our version 1.3 changes that effectively, when you've learned everything from an Esper, all the spells from that Esper, it gives you a little star so you can quickly see, oh, I don't need to mess with that guy anymore. Give it to someone else.
Yeah, that's obviously an option you can toggle on and off, and it's off for our Ultros League races. But, if you're playing in sort of a casual setting, I'm, thinking about, when I play sort of our multi-world seeds, that is definitely something I'm going to put on in my next multi-world seed functionality, just so that I don't have to deal with looking at menus all the time. So it's really neat.
Yeah, it seems perfectly tailored for something like an asynchronous multi-world where you play for a few minutes. You know, you hit mode where you're waiting on other people, so you shut down your seed, and you might not play for a day or two. And you get back, and you're like, "Wait, what did I learn? What was I doing next?"
Yep. So Bosch Nasty dealing with the Kefka before the Kefka, and Overswarm is on to tier number 2. So we can instant death tools. I'm not sure if we have mute or not for magic. I don't quite remember. And we definitely...
I do not believe we do.
So we have ice, which is one of Tiger's weaknesses, and if you really want to, you can stop it, but really it's not a big deal. Because he's only really deadly with 10 hits, right? Which always happens because that's his death counter. So.
Yeah, and actually one interesting thing about the stop, since you mentioned, we can do it via the sword tech, but we do not have stop. Stop is actually on the banned list of top tier magic, which is removed from this seed. So Stunner is the only way to do it.
All right, changing the audio, although Overswarm's audio is definitely a bit low, and I know he usually likes to talk on his streams, so that's why I was rolling with Bosch for a while, but, you know, we tend to usually take the audio of whoever's ahead on stream, so that's what we do. Little end cross coming out from Tiger, one of the reasons why everybody hates Tiger. Thankfully, we do have some fire magic to thaw out Strago. The only way to get rid of the freeze status is with a fire spell.
That is thankful. However, unfortunately, I believe the only person with fire magic happens to be Terra, who is Overswarm's most powerful character. So,
yeah, one of the interesting things that the random drops and steals get you is you're no longer guaranteed to steal things like elixirs from the final battle, right? So you're going to want to know what equipment you have before going into this fight.
yes, because that is one of the other 1.3 flags that's being shown off here, is that all steals, drops, etc. are randomized from bosses, so you can't count on getting, for example, a last-minute Ragnarok off Tier 3, or your very, very last-minute Mega Elixir off Kefka. Fortunately, both runners did find a Mega Elixir in a chest back in Magitek Factory, so they're covered there.
Yeah, and they also found Magimaster in the Magitek Factory, but again, with randomized drops, your Mega Elixir that you're used to getting from Magimaster is not actually available. So, again, these are all... most of the changes that we're talking about are all optional things. Some of the other, sort of bug fixes, like when we saw the Mobliz check, characters will join you at party average versus level 3. We didn't get to see Ebbett's Rock this seed, but there's a buff to Ebbett's Rock that takes you to the Coral Chest more often when you get to your 22, right? So those are things that are baked into the normal part of the game, but a lot of the options we're showing off here are toggleable flags.
Yeah, and one other thing which we haven't mentioned but is worth mentioning because there's a 1.3 change is that if you have the Curse Shield, the Old Man in Narsh World of Balance will tell you the required Curse Shield battles. It's something that, presumably if you're getting the Curse Shield, you decide then and there how many you need, and just go from there. But it's a nice quality of life if for some reason you forget or get a Curse Shield from a chest or something in flag sets where that's allowable.
Yeah, that's a good call. Because I was thinking to myself when I read that change, what's the use case for that? But if you get a Curse Shield from a chest, then that totally makes sense, because you have no way of knowing how many battles it is in the menus. Alright, so Tier 2 I think is almost done from Overswarm. He's just got hit left, which will counter with 10 hits when he dies, so making sure that his characters are topped up on health here. Because even though it is 10 physical attacks, it could still add up, depending upon what pieces of armor your party has.
Yeah, now one very minor thing there that Overswarm was doing that I think is worth calling out is while the 10 hits was going off and you can't really act, was taking that few seconds and using them productively to sort of rearrange things in the menu, move the Thunder Shields and Flame Shields to the top, so they're much easier and quicker to access during Final Kefka. It's a very minor time save, but, saves you a few seconds later and uses the time productively.
Sorry about that. My throat decided that it wanted to die on me now. Probably retribution for all of the pain that I've caused the runners in my commentator curses. Tier 3 for Overswarm, Tier 2 for Bosch Nasty. So Tier 3 will be interesting because he has had Terra using the X magic a lot. Unfortunately, the girl on top absorbs all elements. So Terra is going to have to start working on the bottom half while the rest of the crew decides to go after girl, and thankfully Setzer decides to play along.
Yeah, and Overswarms, this is one of the few cases where not having an offering is very beneficial, because able to use Celeste on the right target to really make sure that girl dies quickly.
All right, yep, there it is. Unfortunately, just a gold shield instead of the normal Ragnarok or Atma weapon from this tier.
Well, I mean, a gold shield is definitely the same thing, right?
I mean, we're going to be heading up to a place of gold pretty soon, but we don't need a gold shield yet. And here comes the Meteo, so we know that that part of the boss is under 10,000 HP. So we need a really big hit here in order to put it away. We did cast our Golem, so that's our protection from calmness. And
I like that option to burn the Thunder Shield just to make sure you knock it out in one blow.
Yeah, very nicely done. Cracking a shield in battle will do a full damage Tier 3 elemental version of the spell. The only way you could do a Tier 3 spell in this seed with the top magic unlearnable flag set on. Looks like we got some Palador action over here from Bosch Nasty. Wonder what he's trying to avoid. Because usually you use Palador to avoid something, like Fallen One or even Calmness.
I don't know, but having two people skip out on quarter there is actually pretty nice.
All right, so final Kefka.
So here you can see very clearly the difference between wearing armor and not. Strago taking 200 damage, Celeste taking 15.
Yeah, unfortunately we got Zombie Grandpa. Hopefully our characters can pick them back up. Looks like Overswarm is going to burn all of his shields now. Why not? Can't take them with you, right?
Yep.
Oh no, and disaster strikes as Strago is going to be left behind. So as part of the final battle, if one of your characters is dead or zombied in this case, as the transitions from one tier to another, that character gets replaced by some scrub on the bench. And normally, if you're playing the vanilla game, that's not too bad, because most of your characters are all around the same thing. But in Worlds Collide, we've been really just using the 4 characters that we've had the entire time. So this Sabin is going to be basically just an item user.
Yeah, but at least on the plus side, Celeste was doing and is doing most of the damage, and Celeste has crazy high health, so probably going to be okay here.
All right, so we're just waiting for Goner here, as Kefka thrown out a hyperdrive. So now we know at least he's in the 30,000 HP range. So he'll start countering with hyperdrive and Havoc Wing. And unfortunately, a zombie character is very dangerous on Final Kefka, because Kefka can throw out some really, really nasty counterattacks, and Bosch gets lucky where the Calmness decided to try and suck up Sabin, but he says, ha, suckers, I'm already dead. So that was interesting there. And we've got two Final Kefkas at the same time. Overswarm has got a decent lead as here comes Goner. This is the only phase that Kefka will not counterattack during, so that's why you see him throwing the shields, throwing out all the weapons, throwing all the cool stuff. And we'll see the end is imminent for Kefka here. Alright, so Goner is unfortunately going to come out. It looks like a really powerful spell, but it's not, because it does not ignore magic defense and it does split damage, so this is not nearly as bad as him, say, you know, countering an attack with Ultima. So we'll have to make sure that that doesn't happen. Meanwhile, Fallen 1 coming in over on Bosch Nasty's screen. So he's going to have to heal himself back up, and that appears to be elixirs for Celeste, his Atma weapon user, who is doing tons of damage per turn here. So it's really an arms race at this point.
I thought Bosch Nasty had a Mega Elixir. Surprised they're not burning it here, but maybe they didn't pick it up.
Here comes Hyperdrive, so that'll turn Setzer into a zombie, and we have Zombie Celeste over there. Thankfully, zombies with Atma weapons don't do very much damage because their health is actually 0. And here comes Celeste during the charge up for Goner, doing 18,000 damage, and we'll see if that's enough. That is the crack. That is the POW. Bosch Nasty finishing first, taking over Swarm there with that huge Atma weapon swing. He hasn't actually donned in the race chat yet, so we don't actually know his time. But he definitely finished first. And Overswarm is now done. 135. Yeah, so technically, Overswarm finishes 139.21, and Bosch Nasty finishes 139.37, but that's not what happened on stream, which is absolutely insane. So can we call them both winners, Arusta? What happens here?
I think we can. One thing I would definitely like to point out is Bosch Nasty was about 5 minutes afterwards stepping on the switches, and you can just see the power of that Atma weapon with an offering as opposed to not having an offering. That Bosch Nasty basically made up all that time and then slightly more just based on being able to kill the bosses slightly faster.
Yeah, that was insane. Incredible. So let's drag both of our runners in. Congratulations, you two.
Thanks, man. It was a fun one.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. Looks like it was close. Looks like he got me by a few seconds.
Yeah,
it was
so
really that close.
Yeah, it was that close. You definitely snuck up on Overswarm at the end there. I think you were about 4 or 5 minutes behind going into the actual Kefka battle, but that Celeste with the offering Atma weapon.
You found an offering?
Definitely was the way to go.
It was a random drop.
Wow. I fought a Katana Soul in a monster in a box, and it didn't give me an offering. I did not know that was a thing.
Oh, I didn't know it didn't drop. Oh, yeah, because it's still random drops.
Yeah, it's random drops and steals. Yeah. I think so that the offering, I remember you, Bosch. You bought it in a shop. I think it was like 60,000.
Oh, I did. That's right. Because it was in Tomasa. No, not Tomasa. The Albrook.
Yeah.
Right after I came out of the cave, I think.
I checked one of the Albrooks and it wasn't there. I bought an economizer for Terra instead.
Yeah, I checked the World of Balance one. I believe I didn't flip over. Didn't need the extra chest. Unless that's not where I got it, but I think that was.
it was hard to remember where we got anything because stuff just came out everywhere.
Well, that's like every time I'm thinking about going to a shop, some random awesome, top tier item just pops into my inventory. I see it on top.
Yeah.
Like I picked up a snow muffler off a random fight in the Kefka Narsh battle.
I got 3 thunder shields from Gobbledygooks in
Nice.
the minecart fights.
I got 4 blizzard orbs from the Seal Cave Ninja as crawlers for my first fight.
Yeah, so the random drops definitely, made things a bit interesting for you guys here. Let's start with you, Overswarm. What was the thing that you liked most about the different changes that you saw with this showcase here?
So I would have to play more with B-Dash to really know if I like it, but I definitely liked how it felt. Like Opera House didn't feel like a wasted check to do. Like there were benefits to Opera House because you didn't waste a minute like walking from one side to the other. And I definitely like it being based around bosses and not like espers or characters. It just felt way better as far as like scaling went. I do wish the scaling was up a little bit in the beginning because it took a while for it to get rolling. But
yeah, the
by
bosses
the end,
at the beginning were pretty easy, and then the bosses in KT were pretty difficult.
Yeah, I died to Funbaba when he used Ultima.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brutal. I died. I died because it was. Talk about later.
I definitely commentator cursed both of your Funbaba fights. I said, "Oh, Overswarm's got his Thunder Shield on. Nothing bad's gonna happen here." Then in Ultima, and I said, "Oh, Bosch Nasty's got everything going with the Minerva. He's fine here, unless Sabin procs Terra as a zombie with the Wing Edge, and of course that happens like 3 turns later. So you're welcome, guys."
That was my only death, and what's worse is I actually gave Celeste the muscle belt that I had found. I can't remember where I got it, but I gave her a muscle belt and an Atlas armlet, and she was using the Atma weapon just single swinging. And I know the muscle belt doesn't like give more damage, but it does decrease the amount of damage you lose when you take damage. And she was solo laning it. I just had 5 characters, and she was solo laning it, and I was like, this is going to help her quite a bit. And then I looked at her level, and I was like, she's 32. That's pretty low. I should give her the experience egg I found, like right at the very end. I found it in a clock in Albrook, in a monster in a battle.
Same. That's where I found it too.
Yeah, and I was like, let's give her the experience egg. And I gave it to her, and because of that, she didn't have enough HP to survive the Ultima. Otherwise, it would have been fine. And then the next battle, of course, she doesn't take any damage at all. Like, everything misses.
Yo, mine was the same. It just had like 12 bios in a row, and he almost didn't even counter.
Yeah. It was the tale of 2 fights. So, Bosch Nasty, what about you? I'll ask the same question. Of these different 1.3 new options that we have available, what I think was your, let's go with favorite, and then something you didn't really like, or maybe not as favorite?
I got you. I mean, as far as, I was trying to go by the book from a lot of like what I've just been practicing with Ultros League, so I didn't stray too far from my normal paths.
Right.
But as far as the chest opening, I like it because it's kind of like, I like it. It's hard to say though, because if you want to enjoy the chest thing, you almost can forget doing shops altogether. And as that kind of goes the same with the random item rewards and random steal rewards. So I feel like in a way it almost makes shops on speed runs, I guess, obsolete, but races, it'll just be a little more intricate to play in. But like, yeah, because otherwise you'd just be hoping to gamble on, good drops on your random battles and just keep pushing on.
Yeah, it sort of cuts both ways too, right? Like both of you guys fought, different monster in a boxes, Katana Soul pugs, and normally you're like, oh, they give these really nice item drops, and unfortunately,
you saw me try to steal from.
A warp stone, and you're like, well.
and then me and my brother was on here talking to me for a bit, so like, yeah, we just pinged that idea back and forth, and I was like, oh, wait a second, I'm an idiot. Just, So I mean, I definitely saw some time sinks. The offering you saw, like I even equipped it early. It was kind of a waste, but I didn't actually check out the scaling of enemies. So with the enemies being scaled so low, it seemed like they were actually dying to those 80 damage hit Atma swings.
Yeah.
So she was still clearing mobs with it.
You found it that early?
Yeah, like that's
Ugh.
yeah. Where did I find it? Was right after the
It was
cave,
in
so
the
it had to be
shopping.
all the.
Yeah.
It
Because
was
you
all
must have
Road
done
Down.
Sealed Gate Cave and then on the way out hit Albrook to shop.
Yeah,
Right?
but I didn't. I normally flip it, but I really always do flip it 100% of the time, except that I was racing, so I didn't want to gamble into running into Doom Gaze.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, the scaling was bosses and dragons defeated ×3. So the first couple of bosses are going to be pushovers, but the ones in Kefka's Tower are going to be difficult because I put the max
Right.
scaling at 45. So when you're done with your 15, you can get into Kefka's Tower. So the other thing I noticed was both of you decided to keep going around and doing, checks to gain levels even after you got to 10 bosses, which is normally like the minimum for going into Kefka's Tower, because if you need 15 to unlock Kefka, you could technically go in at 10, clear out all of KT, and be ready. So Overswarm, was that a conscious decision by you? Were you saying, my levels are not good enough yet, let's take some more checks? Overswarm? All right, so pivoting
All right,
over
I had
to
to step
Bosch.
back for a second. My cat
okay.
climbed the curtain and
No.
downstairs, and I didn't know what the sound was, and it was it like climbing down the wall with its paws.
This cat moment has been brought to you by Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide.com. Anyway,
What was
so
the question?
the question was, you did not go in when you hit to 10 bosses. You did a couple of more. Was that, because you were feeling underleveled?
So, when I first started doing Worlds Collide, I did a lot of like mathing stuff out, just seeing like, well, how much time does this take? How much time does that take? And when I was doing one of the events, like I think it was the blackjack event, I sat down and I was like, what level do you actually want to be for Kefka? And I got a program that can modify save files, and I changed my character's levels with the same equipment, and I ran through at different levels to see like how much time you save. And typically you save time just like grinding random mobs to get to like level 35. And then you continue to save time, but it's diminishing returns. And it drops off really steeply after like 40.
Okay.
So you stop gaining that much time. And I looked at my levels and I was like 28. I was like, all right. We're going to be like maybe 32, 33 with some of the characters.
Right.
And I was like, it's better just to go around and fight some bosses. Maybe we'll get some extra experience. Maybe we'll get some Magicite, get the skip.
Yeah, so speaking of skip, Bosch Nasty, you had 9 espers when you went into Mobliz, and it unfortunately was not an esper. Was getting skip sort of in the back of your mind, or were you just trying to get to 15 before you went into Kefka's Tower?
That's a two-part thing. First off, I was not actually 100% sure if Kefka's Tower, like the entire dungeon itself, was open to you until you had 15 bosses.
Yeah,
So,
it's open from the start.
as
You just
early as you
can't
want.
get-
Okay.
you
Yeah, I
just
wasn't
can't get to
100%
Kefka.
sure if those bosses counted on the inside. I didn't know if dragons counted as bosses.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they are
Okay, so
checks.
They counted
are
towards
not
scaling, but not towards your
Right.
requirements.
So because I was still a little squiffy on like the actual the output I was getting from beating certain bosses,
Right.
once it got to the point where I noticed that there was sharp scaling in the dragons and the normal bosses, as soon as I actually had a count in account going too. So once I got there and saw that I've completed it in Mobliz, because that was does Mobliz's Funbaba, is that a 2 boss fight?
Yeah,
Yep.
it's technically 2. Right.
Okay, that's another one I wasn't sure of. So I really, right when you saw me go to Daryl's tomb, my mind was totally scattered. I had no idea where I had no idea why I was there, and I at that point I should have been going into Kefka, but my main problem was that Sealy's with that offering was really my only legitimate character, at least as far as I felt. Like I wasn't sure if everyone else was going to have the damage output as far as being able to solo their own towers. I wasn't sure if I'd have to run through it like more meticulously than that and have to backtrack and warp out over and over. So once I got to the point where I noticed the level scaling was sharp, I popped another dragon and then pretty much just sent Sealy's on her way to try and exploit to be a full carry, and got very lucky with the pathing choice I made and the setup, because everyone stayed alive. I mean, those the 2 side towers were actually pretty simple, so
Yep.
But up until then, I think what was Celia's before I was going into tower? I guess she was probably low 40s from the egg, and just because
she
of
was
that,
at least 50 when we got to.
she was 50 at endgame, yeah. So, but that's the
Oh,
thing
wow.
because she was the only person with the egg that started with it.
Do you find the
No
egg
one else.
early?
Pretty early. I think it was in Magitek.
Yeah, I found it right before Kefka's tower.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got lucky with it early, but because there was such a gap in performance from her and everybody else,
Yeah.
except for Terra, was her X Magic was doing okay. But again, that was like kind of had to get the right situational fights. I got lucky. All the the right to center tower had all the hardest bosses. So the other two I kind of just got to cheese through, and then let Terra let Celes pretty much do all the work on all of Kefka as well, except for just the particulars of dooming tier 1 and 2.
I think the random drops and steals are kind of a balancing factor against what I think is the worst quality of Worlds Collide right now, is that certain items and espers are basically like a you win button. Like if you find a Valiant Knife or an
Yeah.
Experience Egg or like an offering to pair with an
And
Atma weapon or
the main problem is
Magic
that now you
plus
can get
2.
4 Illuminas to drop or 4 Ragnaroks to
Yeah.
drop.
Yeah.
Like that would be a little filthy.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's the biggest problem I have right now is every once in a while I'll do a race and I'll feel like I'm doing well, and I'll end up like being like 10 minutes behind another group that I'm normally like with or ahead. I'm like, oh, what happened? They're like, oh yeah, we found the experience egg at this place. I'm like, oh well, I didn't go to that chest.
Yeah.
Or I'll like do a check that they don't do and I get a Valiant Knife and suddenly I have offense and they don't. Well, with this one, I mean, there had to have been like 7 or 8 different times that I randomly found good items. Like they might have been not have been the best, but like the muscle belt helped. Like the Atma weapon helped. The random earrings I found help. The multiple thunder shields and the flame shields and ice shields helped. And having all of that stuff let me kind of catch up to Bosch Nasty, even though he had an offering that paired with his Atma weapon, even though he found an experience egg early. In a normal Ultras League, like if he had gotten those things early and I had found them late, it would have been like a 10, 12-minute difference at least. And in this one, we were a lot closer.
Yeah, it's one of those, routing decisions, right? How it's that give and take of how much do you want to go digging into chests for diminishing gains or whatever, right? So
Not really. It's not like a routing choice. It's just more like a random thing that pops up. It's just like the order of the checks you do. Like I got the same experience egg that he did, but I just got it later. And like he got an offering at his relic shop in Albrook, and I visited the relic shop in Albrook as well, and I got an economizer. It could have been flipped around easily, just like the World of Balance, World of Ruin shops, but it's just a random choice because you can't check everything.
Yeah. I'd actually, if I can too, I'd like to say that while random drops isn't terrible, it kind of allows you to just subconsciously boost as you go. Potentially, although just like kind of, like you said, breaking a run, making it a little too easy, and like you just run a little too fortunately into some insanely good items or items that offer you 250,000 in gold where you could just shop to your heart's content.
Yeah.
There
was a lot of money.
Yeah, the random steals, I'm actually a bit against now that I think of it, because with such a deep item pool and the fights that you steal decent items from actually usually be pretty daunting. You're almost just always giving a weaker enemy a chance to have like a god tier item and never worrying about stealing from the harder enemies anymore. So it just cuts out MIABs, I guess, in a way.
And vanilla game knowledge too, right?
Yeah. And it's more in that sense, I guess it'd be like MIABs and certain bosses. But I mean, again, like knowing that you get a red jacket from Poltergeist is kind of huge if you're running into that late or you're dealing with like mixed statue flags.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that you can actually normally bank on. So, it's another part of strategy that it kind of throws it a little more into the beyond chaos idea where like things just function randomly. And
Were the steel drop items tiered in any way, or were they just entirely random?
No, they were. So the setting was shuffle plus random 50%. So all of the items that could be stolen were shuffled amongst themselves, and then 50% of them are just replaced by random items. So
Okay.
I
I
do
was
like
just
the
wondering.
potential for random monster in the boxes though, because that's scary.
Yeah.
and fun.
That's unpredictable and like I just I don't know like every time it happened to me, my face on screen is just
Yeah.
uh,
It's like,
Well,
what's it
that
gonna
was
be?
one of the good things about having the scaling at bosses defeated times 3, because when you have no bosses defeated, your enemies are still level 3, right? So
Yeah.
it's not that dangerous when you're going through your initial looting phase. It can be, it certainly can be. But it also allows you, I think, one of the things I like least about Worlds Collide is grind fights. And this sort of brings the grind fight to you instead of having you actually take off the Moogle Charm and do it, you know?
Yeah.
right.
I was
One more,
opening
sorry.
chests for experience.
Yeah.
One are monster in box bosses?
Yes, so you could. It's a sliding scale. So in this case, I set it to be 10% of all chests are.
Oh no, I meant in
fights.
reference to bosses completed to
Oh,
unlock
no.
Kefka.
Oh yes,
Like
but
presenter.
they have to be unique bosses. But presenter is not considered a boss. It's only the ones that are
Really?
from. It's only the ones that get shuffled
Oh,
amongst
the ones that
the
aren't from
checks.
Monster in Box though.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Katana Soul doesn't count either.
Okay, that's all. Just
Okay, I thought the question that was being asked, which I was actually wondering as we were going along, is if you open a box and you hit the 1% that it turns out as, I don't know, Fun Baba in a chest, does that count as one of your 15?
It does.
If
I
it's
know
if
this
it's
because
unique.
of the Jex seeds where he has the random dragons, and you need dragons to fight Kefka.
Got it.
Yeah. So now that Arista has chimed in, I'll ask if you have any other questions for our runners or thoughts.
No. I mean, it was just a really interesting race. I definitely it was great getting to Comet. It was very impressive the way that Bosch, you caught up. You were about 4 or 5 minutes behind, but just seeing the power of having that offering, catching up that entire time just on Final Kefka. Difference between 5 minutes behind hitting the switches and then 10 seconds ahead getting the crack pow. So GG's to both of you.
Thanks. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I'm glad you guys enjoyed hosting. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was awesome, and thank you guys for bearing with us through the technical difficulties that we were having earlier. This race was supposed to start about an hour and a half before it did on a completely different channel.
I'm midway through the seed of the week, and he's like, "Come on, you gotta come in now. It's 8:00." I'm like, "Oh, okay. I guess I'm forfeiting." 35 minutes later, I'm like, I could have a first place seed of the week under my belt
on stream.
Yeah.
That's also true.
Yeah.
Honestly, I didn't win because I didn't question or exclamation done because I forgot.
I don't think we're that technical.
Yeah,
here.
no, it was.
But the fact that it was that close and it would have
very close.
if you were that technical, I would have lost. Which is pretty brutal.
Yeah, if later on in life you come back and you do details with the race room, you will be in second place. So
exactly
get your dot dones in. Yeah, so that was crazy. In spite of losing one of your main battle characters on tier 2 with Strago, you still happened to catch back up with that Atma offering offense.
Yeah, I really didn't. I knew that at that point, especially just going into Kefka, I had to commit just 100% to keeping Celia's above like 80% health at all times. And then she got slip hit, which terrified me.
Yeah.
Oh, when Fallen One procced right after she took damage, like tick damage. So I was like, I think I'll have enough time. And if you hear my mic, it just me going, yes. Because if that didn't happen, it was over. I wasn't winning.
I gotta say, we focused on like the major changes, but the minor changes for this, like I feel like they should be added to Ultras League 4 like right now before it starts. Like the Esper Mastery icon, the alternate healing text.
That's nice. Yeah,
the
that's
NPCs
a nice little touch.
Providing tips, I thought was fantastic.
Because that NPC in front of Narsh needs to shut up. and just let you in.
Well, like the one in the Opera House, he's like, press the third switch on the left. Like that doesn't take anything away. But if I want to introduce this to somebody, or if I've got that's viewing,
that doesn't have like 20-year muscle memory of like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like it doesn't change anything. It doesn't make it negative. But if someone's playing this for the first time and they go around, they talk to people, like that's fantastic.
Yeah, I completely agree, because that's one of those things that, at the level where you're being competitive at like, a Megalix or deep in a tournament or any of that, people already know that. Maybe they make the mistake sometimes, but everybody basically knows that. It's really the newer players or people just getting into racing who need that information. So I agree.
All right, so Overswarm, any other final thoughts before we let you go?
I don't know how I feel about the junk items, but I think I like it.
I think it's supposed to be like a Kaizo thing, but the junk items and start naked thing, I thought it might be interesting to be like, well, you don't get the stuff you think you get, but you still get not good items to start, right? And it was mostly Coliseum fodder, I thought, but it was just one of those things where I wanted
supposed to use them for.
It was one of those things that I just wanted to try out. You know, this is what we do. We just try random stuff and see how it goes.
I got so excited when I went to the Coliseum and I saw there was a red jacket up for a gold hairpin. I was like, I've got 2 of those. I can get 2 red jackets right away. And it's like Chupon, Sneeze. It's like,
Oh, it's brutal.
Yep.
Yeah,
I actually saw that they had some vanilla stuff in the seeds for the Coliseum. I was like, if I get a rename card or a Tintina bar, I can get an experience egg and no dice.
Yeah, I never saw rename cards either. I didn't go in many shops though, because like we were saying, it just so much good fortune fell on you just through random item drops and whatnot.
You went in the one shop that matters though, right?
Yeah, I think I stocked up. I got 15 Phoenix Downs. I found 20. I bought like 30 Revivifies after I knew that. I was like, oh, okay, right. 15 bosses means you're never getting to 10, like never not doing 10 checks. So let's plan for that.
There needs to be a flag for shops and like chests to not have the game-ending items. Opening a chest and getting Illumina is exciting, but if you don't get that chest and somebody else does, that's so sad.
Feels bad, man.
Yep. It feels so bad because you didn't do anything wrong. Like statistically speaking, like
you even took the faster route.
Chest. You shouldn't like check that shop.
I never look at the chest like what South Figaro, the one you have to loop all the way around the north side.
Yeah. The thing is, 99 times out of 100, it's a waste of time, right?
Yeah, just dollars to like paces to be paid. It's not worth whatever's going to come out of it.
All right, so Bosch, any other final thoughts before we let you out of here?
No, man. I had something on my mind actually. I just can't remember what it was at the moment. But if I get to it next time, I'll be sure to let you know.
Okay. Yep. Sounds good. So thank you guys again for being patient with all of the problems that were not our fault. Apparently, they're happening all across Twitch, and I have had people DMing me from other communities going, "How are you guys streaming right now?" And it's because I'm very tech savvy, people. I know what I'm doing. I'm the anti-Cyan. But anyways, yes, thank you for volunteering to run and for being patient with us. Can't have the race without you guys running, so appreciate that. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. This was a good flag set too.
Yeah, I did. I enjoyed a lot of it.
Yeah,
awesome.
I'm gonna push for like bosses for unlock like forever. It's so much fun.
Yeah, it is. It's just because exactly. You just want to get like into boss crushing mode. You could just go like the world becomes your oyster, and you just start cracking shells.
So many decisions to make. Like I had 5 characters. Like, did I want to go for the skip? Because if I get a 6th character, that helps in Kefka Tower. And
right. And you could see like me doing a 9-7 play and getting in there with like a pretty sizable team. Still, it was almost perfectly balanced between the 2 of us when it came right down to it at the end.
Yeah, and so you get lots of interesting decision with bosses. With characters and espers, like it kind of guides your pathing pretty strictly.
Right.
But
because that they know the frequency of certain checks, based on esper character, etc. Like
it also highlights it or places emphasis on different checks, right? Like Bosch, when you found Sabin, right? You were like, well, Sabin normally is a great character because he's got Collapsing House, he's got Imperial Camp. Those are pretty easy checks without bosses. But wait a minute, why do I want to bother doing those if they don't count towards my Kefka unlock, right? So
yep, and that's why you saw me go to Colts at least too, though. And I almost beat the guy to the cave. I wanted to soft lock the game. I was so close.
Yeah, so I also want to thank Arusta before he goes for doing commentary with me. So thanks, Arusta, for hanging out and doing comms with me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for watching. You guys can keep going, but I got to get to bed. So have a good night, everyone.
Good night. This was fun.
Take care, man. Thank you.
Yeah, it definitely was a little bit later than we thought it was going to be. So thank you all in the chat as well for sticking around and hanging out. Tomorrow is the finals, the grand final, the ultimate final. There is no tomorrow for the Blackjack Battle Royale, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. on FS6 Worlds Collide on Twitch, so be sure to check that out and vote for whoever you think will win that tournament. Ultros League Season 4, as our fellow runners were talking about. Sign-ups are going on right now, so hit up the Discord, and there is a link to sign up in the Ultros League text channel. So make sure you sign up for Season 4. That should be very exciting. We have one more announcement. The only other thing I think I have to chat about is we are going to be part of the Final Fantasy Randomizer Summer Marathon, Sunday, June 18th, 10 p.m. Eastern. One Free Fits is going to be putting on a Worlds Collide showcase. There are some incentives to do, so that should be fun and exciting. Marathon runs are always fun because it's introducing your game to different people and seeing their reaction to it the first time, so it should be a whole heck of a lot of fun. And yeah, so again, thanks to the runners for you guys being able to show off the flags, and hopefully it was a good flag set. I thought it was pretty cool when I ran it, although I had a very difficult time in KT because I didn't go in at the same levels you guys did. I got to 10 bosses and was like, yep, I'm going into KT, and I was level like 31.
Yeah, I figured I'd be biting off way more than I could chew, and like I did want to actually play it safe a little bit. That's why I took all that extra time for the scaling. It wasn't even for the espers or characters, it was just to beef up the starters.
Even though you save time in the immediate moment, right, by going to KT first, you'll lose it on the back end because everything just takes so much longer.
Exactly.
So, all right, so I think that'll do it for us here. Again, tomorrow, the finals for Blackjack Battle Royale. And thanks everybody for hanging out, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye now.
Have a good night, guys.